Welcome to this explainer. Sometimes history hinges on absolute chaos. Today, we're diving straight into how a massive geopolitical disruption, triggered by none other than Napoleon Bonaparte himself, created this incredibly unpredictable power vacuum in Egypt. It was literally the perfect storm that set the stage for the founder of modern Egypt. We are talking about a wildly volatile era where established empires collided, centuries-old systems shattered overnight, and one totally unlikely outsider managed to rise to the very top. Let's get right into it. To really wrap our heads around this epic clash, we're pulling our insights directly from a brilliant historical analysis by Shafiq Gorbal called Muhammad Ali the Great. Gorbal provides just incredible detail on the actual mechanics of this era. I absolutely love this source text because it doesn't just list off dates and battles, it breaks down exactly why the established order collapsed so spectacularly, leaving the door wide open. Okay, to start off, we really have to ask ourselves this fascinating, almost mind-boggling question. How on earth did a tobacco merchant reach the throne of Egypt? It almost sounds like a movie plot, right? We've got this unexpected hero whose incredibly humble origins stand in stark contrast to his monumental destiny as a ruler who essentially rewired the Middle East. Let's look at where it all actually began. Part 1. The Orphan of Kavala, an unlikely beginning. So picture this, it's 1769 and Muhammad Ali is born way outside of Egypt in the small coastal Balkan town of Kavala. He's orphaned young, which means he wasn't growing up in some sheltered royal court. No way. He was thrust right into the real world, taken in by the city governor. Sure, he learned horseback riding and weaponry from his dad's background in the guard, but his most valuable education came from the harsh, everyday grind of tax collection and working as a successful tobacco merchant. This rough-and-tumble, totally practical upbringing gave him something a formal education just couldn't: razor-sharp street smarts. He basically learned how to read people, manage money ruthlessly, and navigate power dynamics from the absolute ground up. Moving on to our second part, the catalyst. Bonaparte shatters the status quo. Flash forward to 1798, Napoleon Bonaparte shows up, and the centuries-old Mamluk system in Egypt just collapses, with shocking speed. This was a massive, violent clash of two completely different realities. On one side, you have the Mamluks. They were essentially this medieval cavalry, totally isolated from modern advancements, ruling through heavy taxes and traditional sword fighting. And then they charge headfirst into the French expedition. The French didn't just bring highly calculated military science, they brought seismic administrative shifts, hospitals, and a super strict, centralized rule. The Mamluks didn't just lose a battle, their entire societal framework was dismantled basically overnight. Now, the crazy part is the French occupation was actually super short. They were there for just over 3 years before getting kicked out by Ottoman and British forces. But the damage? Totally irreversible. When the French left, the country didn't just snap back to normal. The Mamluks were crippled. The Ottomans were desperate to regain control, and essentially the starting gun went off for a vicious, all-out political free-for-all. Which brings us to part 3, the power vacuum, a state of total chaos. Look at this timeline. Between 1801 and 1805, Egypt went through this highly condensed, insanely volatile window. The place was virtually ungovernable. You've got foreign armies retreating, local warlords carving up territory, and everyday civilians just caught in the brutal crossfire. It was the kind of chaotic environment that would destroy most ordinary people. But, as we'll see, it was the absolute perfect ladder for someone who knew exactly how to navigate the madness. To really grasp how dysfunctional things were, just look at the rap sheet of the official Ottoman governors who were sent in to fix things. It's almost comical how badly this went. Khosrow Pasha couldn't pay his troops, boom, overthrown by mutiny. Tahir Pasha showed massive favoritism and was assassinated in mere weeks. Ali Pasha literally walked straight into a Mamluk trap and was killed. And then there's Khurshid Pasha, who just resorted to outright extortion, using oppressive mercenaries that completely alienated the public. Every single one of them failed because they had no money, no loyal troops, and no way to crush the surviving Mamluks. Part 4. Mastering the Chaos, the strategy of Muhammad Ali. So, while all these official governors are falling like dominoes, Muhammad Ali is just quietly watching. As a commander of the Albanian forces, he was in the perfect spot to exploit all this turmoil. And notice what he does here. He doesn't just make some blind, egotistical grab for power. First, he stays completely aloof. He literally lets his rivals bleed each other dry. Then, he forms these incredibly pragmatic, temporary alliances, even teaming up with his sworn enemies, the Mamluks, to kick out the Ottoman governors. Once that's done, he totally flips the script, teaming up with his Albanian troops to isolate those very same Mamluks.
But his absolute masterstroke? He played the populist. He aligned with highly respected religious leaders to protect regular Egyptians from the crushing taxes everyone else was imposing. I mean, he read the room better than an entire global empire could.
And that leads us to part 5, the climactic moment, May 1805. By May of 1805, Cairo is at a total boiling point. The public is just exhausted. The looting, the taxes, the endless street fighting, they'd had enough. So they take matters into their own hands. The leaders of the Egyptian public, Syed Omar Makram and Sheikh al-Sharqawi, march directly up to Muhammad Ali and deliver this incredible quote: "We will not accept anyone but you as our governor." Talk about a payoff. He didn't even have to conquer the city by force. The local notables were so desperate for stability that they literally bypassed the Sultan in Istanbul and handed the keys to the country right to him. Which leaves us with this really profound final thought to chew on. How does an orphaned tobacco merchant from Kavala step into the explosive, messy void left by Napoleon Bonaparte and walk out as the founder of a modern state? He outsmarted medieval warlords, he outmaneuvered a massive global empire, and he completely weaponized the desperation of the public. It is a sheer masterclass in strategy. But it really makes you wonder, once a guy wins a country through that much cunning manipulation, what on earth does he do when it's finally time to actually rule it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a totally new perspective on the rise of Muhammad Ali Pasha